Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke. I am the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. And yes, it is my birthday. And yesterday was the birthday of my grandmother, Emma. She was kind of the person. Have you ever had that person that my mentor was my grandfather? And I was very close to him and I admired him and I followed him around and tried to be like him in so many ways. And I even tried today to be like him. But he passed away at age 87, and my grandmother lived until she was nearly 99 years old. And so I got to know her without the shadow of my grandfather, and she was an amazing lady, and I got to meet and be with her a lot when I was a teenager, and then when I was older, or I got older and she was much older, I got to know her really well and learned from her and really admired her. And similarly at Global Chamber, we there are so many people within this tribe that are so impressive, and sometimes you have to get them aside, or you have to find a way to bright or dim the light of something else that's around to really be able to listen. And for me, Uzbekistan is probably one of those countries. I quite honestly, I've never been there. I'd never had it on my radar screen. When I started Global Chamber 10 years ago, Tashkent was one of those cities I'd never heard of before starting Global Chamber. I'd had a global career, 65 countries, mostly in Asia, but nonetheless, I thought I knew a lot of places, didn't know Uzbekistan. So much else uh, was a bright light that allowed me to not see it. And one of the things that I cherish Daniel Zaretsky for is his love of Uzbekistan and his understanding of the culture and his passion toward it. So when we met, and he was in Queens, where I'm largely from, although I was born in Westchester County, my family's from Queens, New York, which is the most diverse county in the United States. He is living in Queens and he joined Global Chamber and he became a global advisor and he started to explain about Uzbekistan and the stands in that region and the opportunities that are there. I just became fascinated, including Daniel, the raw meat, the raw beef food in Uzbekistan is like I need to try this. I'm ready for it. And so today's conversation, I presume, is one of many. Now that Daniel's got his feet firmly on the ground in Uzbekistan and has got his business set up there and has all sorts of not only plans but actions in place to be able to grow his business there. I was very pleased, by the way, also to meet your partner in Greece today. We've already connected on LinkedIn, and I'm looking forward to connecting with her and seeing how we can work together as well. But today's focus is Uzbekistan, and you know more than anybody that I know. So we look forward to learning from you today and understanding what those opportunities are and being connected in a deeper way. Thank you for taking the time to share with us.
Doug, thank you. Thank you. Happy birthday as well. And yes, that's true. I'm from New York, born and raised there. But somehow I got into Central Asia, and that is due to a college professor of mine because I studied Russian in college and the Soviet Union was falling apart. I didn't know much about Central Asia also, but my mission, I guess, is to be in new markets, and the Soviet Union covers 1/6 of the Earth's landmass, I believe, and that was going to be a new market. So I said, okay. And then I got into the Central Asia part of it. It's a long story. I don't want to go into it. But when I finished university, the Soviet Union had recently fallen apart. And then I had this kind of knowledge of Central Asia. And I said, well, this is a new region of the world. Nobody knows about it. This will be my comparative advantage. This is how I will uh, separate myself from the masses. I got to get over there. So just a week ago, it's the 30-year anniversary of me returning back to the US for my first time working in Kyrgyzstan. a neighboring country of Uzbekistan. And I also worked a second time in Kyrgyzstan in the 90s. I went to grad school. Uh, I actually studied Uzbek in grad school, but it's almost 30 years ago. I could actually speak decent Uzbek 30 years ago, but it's 30 years of no practice. So we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, 20 years ago, I visited Tajikistan for the first time, and I moved there in 2007 and lived there 12 years. And I was on the board of AmCham, the American Chamber of Commerce there, which a lot of you probably know. They're AmChams in a lot of places in the world. And I founded and ran Global Entrepreneurship Week and Women's Entrepreneurship Day in Tajikistan. And Global Entrepreneurship Week is in 200 countries. And we were either the first or among the first to run startup trainings, competitions, and other stuff. And I still do some consulting for the firm Mercer there, and I had my own company there. Now, since the new president took over in Uzbekistan, which is now 8 or so years ago, I wanted to move here, and I'll explain why in a second. And COVID hit, so I was unexpectedly home in New York for 2.5 years while all my stuff was in Tajikistan. But I did manage to move here about 2.5 years ago. And just to explain, so when we oh, and by the way, well, there probably is somebody on this call who knows more than about Uzbekistan, and that's Davran, who I just met today in a previous call, and he's from Uzbekistan, but he's living in Istanbul actually, and just Istanbul is kind of the capital of this region. I'd say Istanbul and Dubai. So anyway, Uzbekistan and Central Asia. So when we talk Central Asia, there's many definitions of it, but for our purposes, we're talking five stands. That's Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan. Some people will say Mongolia, some people will say Western China, some people will say Afghanistan, Northern Iran, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia, which are in the Caucasus and so on. But for this purpose, I'm talking about the five stands when I talk about Central Asia. So what is so interesting here? Well, I talked about markets recently opening up, and that's why you want to be here. So basically, if we're talking Uzbekistan itself, there are some famous ancient cities here that you may have heard of, like from the Silk Road times, Bukhara, Samarkand, Khiva, which a lot of tourists visit and which I highly recommend as well, besides visiting Tashkent and other parts of the country. So this was never called Uzbekistan in history, but the Soviet Union drew borders. This was part of uh, Turkic rule, part of Iranian rule before that. Then you had the Arabs come with Islam. You had the Mongol Empire. You had Chinese involvement somewhat. And then you had the Russians come under the Tsarist time, and then it became part of the Soviet Union. So Russian is still going to be your major language here of communication in business, in a lot of things. But there is a move towards more people, especially younger generation, learning English and to using the local languages. And let me just explain. The local languages are Turkic. Okay, now the Turkic world stretches from Turkey all the way through to Siberia. A number of groups in Russia are Turkic, as well as most of the stands except for Tajikistan and so on. So the Turkic world itself probably has about 150 million speakers. Uzbek will be the second most spoken Turkic language in the world after Turkish. The other language is Tajik, which is very close to Dari of Afghanistan and Farsi of Iran, which I actually learned being in uh, Tajikistan all those years. So Russian, but if you come for a visit, you can find English speakers and so on. But if you're going to live here for a while, I would say learning Russian first. And if you're going to live here for a long time like me, then you want to learn the local languages as well. So basically, what we're talking about here is Uzbekistan is now the second largest city by population, sorry, city, country by population in the former Soviet Union. It used to be Ukraine, now it's Uzbekistan. Unofficially, we've got 40 million people here. And that number will probably become 50 million very soon because of the youth bulge here. I just also want to say that if we take the five stands, that population is probably unofficially about 80 million, will probably be 100 million soon because all five stands have doubled their populations in the last 20 or 30 years. Okay. Now, Tashkent, where I am, is the capital of Uzbekistan. Would you believe it's the third largest city by population in the former Soviet Union? After Moscow and St. Petersburg, it passed Kiev in Ukraine. And the population, let's say unofficially, is 4 or 5 million. They are building a new Tashkent, Yengi, Uzbekistan, or Yengi Tashkent. Yengi means new. And so the population eventually is planned to double to about 8 to 10 million people. Okay, so they're basically building a whole new capital city about 15 miles outside of the current capital, and it's going to be extremely modern and so on and so forth. So that's something to be interested in, to look into. Okay. Another thing you will find in the stand countries is relatively good education levels for their income and development levels. You have very high levels of literacy here as well. And I've done some mentoring for startups as well. So I've seen that there's talent not just in Tashkent here, but also in the various regions of Uzbekistan. And we'll get into natural resources and critical raw materials as well. But what we can say here is that Russia and China are known for having a lot of critical raw materials. Okay. After that will come countries in Central Asia and say maybe in Argentina or something. So there's a lot of interest in critical raw materials here. I saw that the US just signed another agreement with Uzbekistan in the last year or two. There have been agreements on critical raw materials signed between Kazakhstan and the EU and the US, and Uzbekistan and the EU and the US. And there have been visits here. I believe President Macron visited here, David Cameron visited here. I'm not sure. I think the German guy also visited here as well. So that's something to look at. Okay, we can continue here. Another thing to talk about before we move on, just about the population. In Uzbekistan, there are over 1 million births every year and over 1 million high school graduates every year. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing is Tashkent itself is basically central in Central Asia. It's very close to the borders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and uh, Tajikistan. So Khojand, which is the second largest city in Tajikistan, formerly called Leninabad during Soviet time, and where most of the factories are located in Tajikistan, is about a 3 hour drive. Chimkent, which is the third largest city in Kazakhstan after Almaty and Astana, is also about a 2 hour drive. And Osh, which is the second largest city in Kyrgyzstan, is also a little bit further, but it's also like 6 miles from the border with Uzbekistan. So this is a very good place to come, not just for Uzbekistan, but for Central Asia. If you're looking to set up a regional headquarters, say for logistics, for infrastructure, for service, for manufacturing, whatever it is, you name it. And one of the key things that's driving this region is that these countries did not get along with each other previously. But since the current president came in, his name is Shavkat Mirziyoyev, that has changed. And that has meant that the countries are now generally getting along with each other. In fact, they just had a trilateral meeting about a week ago in Khojand in Tajikistan between Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, where they delineated the borders finally between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. So that was borders are basically delineated now in Central Asia. They were a bit of a mishmash from the Soviet period. And so there's a lot of cooperation now in a lot of different areas. Okay. And I I have in my notes about city clusters and all that. I don't think we need to talk about that right now, but I kind of mentioned how close some of the main cities are with each other. But there's a lot of work now, okay, on trade, on opening up new border crossings among the countries, developing new transport corridors. We can talk about, for example, the middle corridor, which is connecting Europe to China. And I think that should be very interesting for people. Why? China just announced finally after 20 years, 5 years talk, they're building a new railroad connecting China to Kyrgyzstan to Uzbekistan. Okay, and there's a lot of work now on north-south connection between Central Asia and Uzbekistan through Afghanistan into Pakistan, maybe into India. Railroads are being built now to connect all of Afghanistan and also will allow access to the sea. So Uzbekistan is double landlocked, but through Pakistan could get to the Persian Gulf, to the Indian Ocean, and all these kind of places. And why the middle corridor is important, I didn't put a map on there, but trade may have went through Russia. Well, Russia is under sanctions and other stuff now. Trade can go through the south, but then it goes through Iran, which is also under some sanctions. So this middle corridor coming from China through Kazakhstan or through Kyrgyzstan, through to Uzbekistan, through to Turkmenistan, through to the Caspian Sea, where it gets loaded onto ferries, then goes to Azerbaijan. Okay, from Azerbaijan, it's going to go through the Black Sea, maybe, but a lot of it goes through Turkey then. So Azerbaijan is a very key node in this realm. But there's going to be a tremendous amount of work in the future on all kinds of things relating to trade, relating to logistics, relating to infrastructure, and all this. So these are things to keep your eyes peeled for coming in the future. A lot of air routes have been opened up here. Every day it seems like new air routes are being opened up. It's So it gets a lot easier and easier to fly here. I would say Turkish Airlines is still the main provider. As you may know, Turkish Airlines flies to about 130 countries. And when I first started flying them 30 years ago, maybe they flew to 30 countries and maybe two in Africa. Now I think they fly to 50 in Africa. They fly practically everywhere in the world. So Istanbul is a very good transit point. Although privatization is happening, that's another thing to learn in Uzbekistan. Still a lot of state-owned enterprises, okay? Still, and the government is looking to privatize, and Uzbekistan Airways may be one of them, and they do have direct flights to New York a number of times a week. So this is what's happening, okay? Uh, visa. Visas are also become a lot easier. It used to become really, really difficult to travel to these countries. Uh, I know that Uzbekistan now has visa-free travel for many countries. For an American, you need to get an e-visa, which you apply for online 3 days in advance outside of Uzbekistan. For Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan, you don't need a visa for I think up to 30 days. Although for Tajikistan, I'm not sure if that's at the border, land crossings, and that's only by flying. So it's become a lot easier. Okay. Um, Now, uh, we'll get into the opportunities in a second. I just want to finish with a little bit more background here. A lot of people hear the word "stan" and they think not safe. I can tell you, I don't have a death wish. There's countries I will not go to, and I feel incredibly safe in Central Asia. I've had for many years, and I have my business partner Dimitra on the call in Greece. So she's visited. She's visiting again next month and in 2 months. So she can tell you how safe it is here. It's very safe region, and Uzbekistan and Tashkent are very safe. You can walk out alone at night, and nobody's going to bother you. So okay, let's finish that. Read the okay. Um, so what are some of the opportunities here? Okay, I will say this. Kazakhstan, which is the neighboring country, is a country you may know more about. So Kazakhstan has a lot of oil and gas and other resources, and they basically opened up to the world very quickly after the Soviet Union fell apart. So there was a huge boom in Almaty, Kazakhstan in the 90s and the zeros, and you had a lot of exposure to foreign companies, multinational companies, consulting companies, oil and gas, this, that, and the other. And the government, I already studied with them in the 90s in grad school in the US, was sending their best students to get master's degrees in the US. So Kazakhstan is ahead of everybody in this region by a long mile in terms of resources and in terms of exposure to the outside world and global business practice and standards of behavior. Okay. Now, Uzbekistan was not on that level, but since they opened up, and they really opened up, they changed their system when the new president came in. They've been starting to catch up. Okay. So, Kazakhstan, you'll still find, therefore, Kazakhstan, I would say, in the lead in many areas. But Tashkent is now becoming the business capital of this region, where in the previous times, you wouldn't. It was a closed country. Okay. Now, one of the things that Uzbekistan does that the neighboring countries don't do as much of is actually manufacture. So there is a thriving manufacturing sector here in Uzbekistan, and they even manufacture Chevrolet cars here as well. Okay. Now, the manufacturing, they're trying to move up the value chain here, and so on, in the manufacturing. So they are exporting here, and they're also exporting. There's a lot of good agriculture. All these countries are very still agriculturally very heavily based economies. And I can tell you that, especially in season, the fruits and vegetables are incredible. And Uzbekistan does have some processing capabilities to be able to process fruits and vegetables and export that as well. So agriculture is a big area, but they need technology and they need investment. And part of that is due to the Soviet legacy, where there was a cotton monoculture here. There's a whole history behind it. It's going to take too long to go behind it. But during the Soviet time, particularly Uzbekistan, parts of Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, even Kyrgyzstan, the focus was cotton at any cost. So you may have heard of the Aral Sea, which is in the west, which is the fifth largest inland body of water in the world, which dried up. And as far as I understand, the Central Asian countries are the biggest water wasters in the world, and that's due to that cotton monoculture and all the irrigation and the whole thing. So they definitely need technologies, and they need more markets for their products and so on. So agriculture is something you may want to look into, um, as something to just keep in the back of the mind. Now, what we're also talking about here is then industry. So they are manufacturing, there are plants, and not just in Tashkent, they're all over the country. I would say that the biggest investors currently, China, and the Gulf region. So those are the guys that we're talking about. Now, it's almost every day you're reading in the newspaper here that China's doing this new plant to manufacture this, or to do, wind or solar power, or someone from the Gulf. So with the Gulf, we're talking mainly it's things like Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE, Kuwait, possibly Bahrain, and these type of there's also every day something coming on, particularly in energy, particularly this or that with solar energy, but or with wind energy. And I should mention that Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, which are very mountainous, have a lot of potential hydropower as well. So that's where a lot of the investment is coming from. But it would be interesting to see more from other countries. There was just in Samarkand last week, the first ever big EU Central Asia summit, where some various agreements were signed. So it looks like there's going to be a lot more close relations between the EU and Central Asia. I have found, at least from the Uzbekistan side, that there's actually quite, I don't say, well, pro-American, but like the US, it seems like everybody already has family in the US. And if you will go to New York, to certain regions of Brooklyn or Queens, you might think you're in Central Asia, because there's so many people from Central Asia here. So there's definitely looking for American and other countries' technology and investment. There's definitely an interest in that. There's an openness. And I should say that I found the people here to be not xenophobic against foreigners. Okay, quite friendly, quite open, practically regardless of where you're coming from. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I would say that in the youth bulge, education and training is a big deal. Okay, that's something to look into too. There are now private universities allowed here, and there are branches of foreign universities here. And I mean, they're from Korea. I should mention, Korea has a special place here because there are 200,000 Koreans in Uzbekistan, and they're in the rest of Central Asia as well. Like many nationalities, Stalin exiled them here. So there's a lot of business being done with South Korea. There's daily flights, multiple things as well. There's Greeks here, there's Germans, there's Tatars, there's Armenians, there's Jews, there's Uyghurs, there's so many different nationalities here and in this region of the world. But I would say that the problem is this region was cut off from the global world, not just by the Soviets, but for about 800 years. So if you go back about 800 years, this was the center of the world, the center of the Silk Road. The great scientists of the world came from here. You can name 10 or 15, including the guy Al-Khwarizmi, who invented, I don't know if he's the one who invented algebra, one of them did. Well, the Silk Road fell apart, and this region kind of fell more into the backwater. And then under the Soviet regime, I don't want into geopolitics, but they were cut off from the West, which means the West, which means Western Europe and North America and East Asia, which in the modern era are the two main poles of innovation in this world. So they basically don't have long-lasting diasporas. They have some, but not at the level. It's diasporas only coming in the last, 20 or 30 years. And there was kind of a lack of understanding of global norms and standards of business behavior. So there's a lot of need for that. And I would say there's a big generation gap because you find a person like Davron here, who I don't know, but look, he's already based in Istanbul. He's speaking multiple languages. I saw on his LinkedIn he got educated in Korea and so on. So these guys, to me, are the future. These are the young generation, the youth bulge, and this is the first generation that understands global norms and standards of business behavior. And this is the generation that I like to work with. As I say, if you're going to have a chance of success, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed, but it's probably going to be through a younger generation that came up in the post-Soviet period, okay, and has understanding more of how to do business and all this kind of a thing. So there's still a lot of need then for this youth generation coming up that's the first that's exposed to globalization. There's a lot of need for training, for education, okay? And by that, I mean there could be universities still, but training centers, vocational centers, schools. And I don't mean just in Tashkent, my friends. I mean in the regions. If I told you that Tashkent is 4 million, but the country is 40 million, that means 36 million is outside of Tashkent. And there's some still pretty big cities outside of Tashkent as well. So there's a lot of this need throughout the country, and I would say throughout Central Asia as well. So education and training, and we can get into what I'm trying to do with Dimitra about that later here. So that's certainly something to look at. Let me just go very quickly through my notes here. Venture capital and angel investing is new here. Startups here traditionally have trouble getting investment, and that's something that's first coming out of Kazakhstan, but now is increasing here as well. Okay. Now, another thing I shall mention to you that's been very important here, the war with Ukraine and Russia. Basically, I moved to Tashkent about the same time as all the Russians for different reasons. They came here, and this is an amazing thing, not just to Uzbekistan, but to countries in the region. Many Russians left. Okay, why? They left in two waves. They left when the war was first declared, and they left in one day. They had no idea the war was coming. They dropped everything. They got out here in one day because these countries speak Russian and they don't need a visa. and they have history with them. And some of them paid thousands of dollars because the prices went up. The second came in September of that year when he announced mobilization, and they didn't want that. So many professionals from Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus came here. Okay. And these are very, the intellectual ones, the global ones. They're IT specialists, they are HR specialists, psychology, VC, this, that. And I visited the Soviet Union actually. So Russia didn't know then. Those people didn't exist in Russia then. Okay. So they're maybe 25 years ago, they start getting that knowledge 30 years ago. And they've come here, and I'd say they've artificially boosted these sectors 10, 15 years. And some from Kazakhstan as well. HR is pretty booming here now. There wasn't an HR 5 years ago community. There wasn't psychology community. There wasn't a startup community 5 or 6 years ago. Now there's an IT park here, which is outsourcing. And that's another thing to look at. If you want to do outsourcing in IT, it's very cheap here. And they have IT parks now in every region of Uzbekistan, and they have events and so on as well. So outsourcing is taken over. Startup community is really booming. Uh, VC is starting to come in. As I say, some of these issues. But what is the main thing of my talk? Why I want to get you interested here? Most of the world did a lot of basic things 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Turkey wasn't Turkey 50 years ago. Dubai wasn't Dubai 50 years ago. Okay. And why am I not in the US? I love the US, but anything I can offer was done 100 years ago. So I'm here because, as I said, Central Asia only opened up recently, Uzbekistan even more recently, and a lot of low hanging fruit has not been done here yet. And if you wait 10 years, you'll have missed the boat. And by that, I mean there's all kinds of possibilities here. So global franchises are very rare here. They're just opening up. Now, in the last few years, we've gotten a KFC, we've just gotten Domino's, Papa John's, Costa Coffee, a few others. But franchises here, they dot the rest of the world. They're still not really here. And as I say, you've got a youth bulge, okay, in all the countries. And this is something that is still so there's room for a lot more franchises. Now, let me give you an example though. Hotel franchises. 5, 6 years ago, there were very few here. Now they're all over the place. So, if, for example, not that there's room for certain franchises, but if you're looking at the American brands, there's only a few that aren't here now. Whereas 5 or 6 years ago, there would have been coffee shops. There, I was here under the previous president. There was one maybe every mile. Now they're on every street. It's like pizzerias in New York City on every street. Okay. So, but still, most of them are local one offs or local chains. And except for Costa Coffee, really, we don't have here yet. And that's actually, we can talk about later with Dimitra. We're in talks with a Greek coffee chain to come here as well. So even in things that may look like they're saturated, there's still a lot of possibilities. So franchising in many areas is something that I definitely see as something that can be very attractive here in the future. I think things related to education and training, as I said, are things that can be attractive. Logistics and infrastructure, as we mentioned, there's a tremendous need. There's a tremendous need even for warehouses. For example, if you will come in Tashkent, you will see what's called a Dorikhana, a pharmacy on every street, but they don't have proper places to put their pharmaceuticals, warehouses. And there's a need for warehouses and other logistics centers throughout Uzbekistan and throughout the region because they're really making a push on these trade corridors right now. So that's something else. Let me see if there's anything else here that I can. The economies. The economy is basically growing 5% every year. So it keeps growing. Okay. Um, anything else that I can add? Blah, blah, blah. I have all this stuff about monetary policy. That's not interesting. Textiles is another thing here. The textile, of course, from the cotton is very big here. and they're looking to export, they're looking to modernize as well. I would say importing here is possible as well. There are various food products that they don't have here that they might be looking to import as well. Um, so I would just say, I could go on and on. I don't want to, I want to leave for questions or comments. Anyone who will have comments is willing to add because I probably left stuff out or maybe I said something that's not true. Anybody can correct me. But just to recap here then, basically what we're looking at is a new region, a safe region in terms of your physical safety, okay? That is opening up to the world, and you have this youth generation here, okay, and you're not going to find many places like this in the world where you can get in at the ground level, and if you wait you won't. Now I have only been to South Africa, so I can't say I'm an expert on sub-Saharan Africa, but it strikes me in some ways sub-Saharan Africa is another place, like another place you want to be in this world, where things are just opening up and a lot of things haven't been done yet and they will get done. So I would say that the two contiguous land masses in the world where you want to be in terms of new markets is sub-Saharan Africa and this Central Asia region of the world. And just in terms of what I'm doing now, so Doug did mention that I registered my own company here recently, but no sooner did I do that than I started to work with Dimitra, who's on the call. And Dimitra is actually uh, her company is based in Dubai, and I will be working with that company. So as well, it's called Orama Consult, ORAMA Consult, and she's from Australia, but from Greece, and she recently moved from Australia back to Greece. She visited Tashkent 1 month ago. She's coming next month, and she's coming in June for the big annual international investment conference that they have here, and then a logistics conference. So what we're working on right now, it's kind of a hodgepodge, but why it's that? Because there's so many things to get into the market on. So we've stumbled upon this franchising idea, and we have good contacts here. We think we can possibly even get local investors here. So the first thing we're looking at is Greek franchises from Greece in various sectors. But we're welcome to work with all kinds of countries. We just happen to be Greece because Dimitri's from Greece, and Greece seems to be very open to international expansion, their companies. So that's one thing. A second thing is education and training. We're in talks with the Business Logistics Association about possibly setting up a training center for that area here as well. There's other possibilities, as I mentioned, due to the youth bulge and the need, to catch up in the globalizing world. Another thing that we're looking at here is import and export as well. Right now, mainly in importing. Exporting is definitely needed here, but it's developing. It's developing. Uh, Another thing that I would talk about here is that we're looking at too is the logistics and the infrastructure. So as I mentioned, they're building the new city in Tashkent, which is a huge project, and we're talking about some of the smart city aspects of that, as well as logistics centers, maybe not just in Uzbekistan, but throughout Central Asia because of this need, as I mentioned, the trade between Europe and China and between the North and the South from Russia all the way through to India. So these are some things that we're looking at right now. We have experts, we have potential local partners, we have further meetings coming up in next time Dimitra comes. And the main thing we're looking for is potential investors now, whether they be local, whether they be foreign for some of these projects. So things are kind of developing very quickly. And if you talk to me in 6 months or the year, I'll probably have a lot more information. But I also did leave my LinkedIn in there. And that's my favorite place for connecting, not WhatsApp, not Telegram, not any of that stuff. So if you want to, you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. And I think, Doug, I think I said enough.
I love that. And I totally agree that LinkedIn is the place for most of us, but there are certainly backups. Amazing
Mhm.
information, fantastic summary. I felt like waiting on every word, and I'm looking forward to the AI interpretation of everything that you've pulled together. I think we need to put a blog post and continue to bring these opportunities to others. I also made a couple connections for you that I think will be important, particularly one in the franchise area. You may already know Bill Edwards,
All
but
right. Yes, I've heard. Yes.
he's the world's preeminent expert on international franchising, and he'll be very interested in what you're doing and undoubtedly be able to help. So I like to encourage all of you. Let me see, I don't see any hands raised, but I encourage you to raise your hand or to unmute yourself and ask questions. There's a lot there to unpack. And so I'm wondering oh, oh, what questions you might have. In the meantime, while we're waiting for those, you mentioned, Daniel, Dimitra. And
Hmm.
Dimitra, thank you for connecting so quickly on LinkedIn. Is there anything that you would want to add? Because there was some connectivity there that you and Daniel are working on between Uzbekistan and Greece. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Um, Look, thank you, Doug, and happy birthday to you, Doug, as well. And thank you very much, everyone. Um, Look, I think what really differentiates Uzbekistan from other markets, its willingness to expand to work with foreigners, to work with investors, to really be what really caught me by surprise, and I mean this in a good way, everyone, is I went there and people are willing to work with you. They're very genuine, very respectful of foreigners. And Tashkent is a very safe city to the point where I went, oh my God, wow. And one lady before I went there, Doug, went to me, are you sure you want to go? And I went, I'm going. I couldn't care less. And I said to her, I don't know what you've heard. I said, it's an amazing place. Um, and there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of really good opportunities. Uzbekistan's location is amazing. It's at the center of Central Asia, a lot of history and a lot of willingness to do very well. There's a lot of young people, Doug, as well, and a lot of young people that are willing to work with foreign investors, foreign companies. And of course, I'm forever grateful to Daniel for introducing me to Central Asia and bringing me into Central Asia and being able to really do a lot of great work. And that's what Orima is all about, really just getting down to the ground, really being at the front line and working with people and actually making a difference. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Davron, you were mentioned as well. And like Daniel, I don't know you as well yet, but it looks like, as Daniel mentioned, I noticed that the university you went to seemed like it might be Korean. I didn't look deeper. I didn't understand the connectivity between South Korea and what you're doing. So in that region. So that's amazing. Do you have a
Mm.
moment just to introduce yourself and add to the conversation?
Sure, Doc. Happy birthday, first of all. Thank you, Daniel, for the valuable information about Uzbekistan. I really appreciate the efforts you gave to study the market, people, culture, everything. I agree with you. First of all, to develop the business in Uzbekistan these days, logistics and infrastructure is still challenging. And I love it that you focused on the projects in logistics and infrastructure. I studied my bachelor's and master's degree in South Korea in business administration, bachelor's in hospitality and tourism management in master's degree. I had I worked in banking system in South Korea, and then I came to Istanbul. I've been living in Istanbul for 4 years. I've been working with Rashid, turnkey president. And also I'm exporting Turkish furniture and then Horeca, hotel, restaurant, and catering business equipment, furniture, A to Z to Uzbekistan from Turkey. So these days there is a huge demand for hospitality and tourism sector development in Uzbekistan. So I'm assisting people to find the right business partner in Turkey.
Mm.
Fantastic. And where are you based, did you say? Are you in Tashkent?
In Istanbul, I'm living
You
in
are.
Istanbul. I'm from Namangan, Uzbekistan, the eastern part of Uzbekistan.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We have, and at Global Chamber, we do try to stick to the 60 minutes and not go over. So we started at a very unusual time at quarter after the hour. And so we have about 10 minutes left. John Williams, I see you have a question. Are you available to ask it live?
I am, yeah. Thank you, Doug. So I am a consultant working in the industrial strategy and offset programs realm. I wonder, Daniel, first of all, thank you very much for the very informative presentation that you made. I'm wondering if there is a capacity building program, maybe an offset policy that the Uzbek government has. If they don't have a policy, would they be interested in possibly looking at one in order to increase industrial capability, capacity, have foreign investment, and things like that? Because there are a number of benefits to offset programs that you may or may not know about already. So that's my question.
Thank you. And Davron, you feel free to add into this because you may know more about this than me. So when you say offset, you're talking about carbon offset programs or what?
No, not at all. I'm talking about government offset. So offset is the concept of basically having OEMs, foreign OEMs, sell you commercial or military items. In exchange for that sale, contract of sale, that OEM from a foreign country, this is the US or Europe or wherever it may be, agrees to put a certain dollar amount of work back into the country.
Oh, like off takes. Okay, I call it off takes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's another term that's used frequently. So I don't want to take much time, but we can talk about this more offline if you like.
Yeah. Okay.
There's lots of benefits to this. But it all starts with the government having a policy. And my company, I have a small team of 3 people. We're also subject matter experts in this, and we can certainly help with this policy shaping if you'd like.
And John is a member in Phoenix, right? Or you're the John Williams from Phoenix?
Yep.
Okay, just double checking.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
No
problem, but I'm a former
problem.
resident of Dubai, so I'm very familiar with the area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so Dimitra's our company is based in Dubai, and that's where I may move next down the road.
Okay, cool.
One thing I will say, Tashkent, Dubai, and Phoenix are no places to be in the middle of summer. Tashkent is
July and August are not good months in any of those places. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been in Dubai in November, in October it was already. I've been in Phoenix in June, and of course I've been in Tashkent in the middle of summer. So that you have all that in common. Yeah. Anyway, I am not exactly familiar with what's being done with offsets here. That being said, it's something that I can try to look into here and see if I can find something out about what's going on with that. I put it in my notes here. You can certainly feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or so. And then
let's get on LinkedIn and then we can take it forward.
Yes. So if and when I find something, I will get back to you about that.
Sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate your presentation again today.
Thank you. I appreciate it too.
Thank you, John. And by the way, Daniel, you were in Phoenix in June. That's like springtime. It's July and August that are the hot season.
Or November. Last year, November was 100 degrees.
So
well, the main
global warming is a real thing. Yeah.
The main time I should be in Phoenix is in January and February. That's when I have to be in Phoenix, not in Tashkent or New York.
That is a good time. Does anybody else have any comments? And I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but Manabu Sasaki, you are involved with investments on a regular basis. And one of the enlightening things I think that was talked about was and I think it was Dimitra who mentioned about the open investment environment that there is in Uzbekistan. I'd like to really learn more about that. Sasaki-san, I'm not sure if you're involved or have been involved in this region and investment. You're certainly involved in the United States. Are you available just to say hi and make any comments? And it's okay if you're not. Oh, there you are.
Yes, thank you, Doug. Hello, everyone. My name is Manabu Sasaki. I work for Turkish International. Apologize, I can't put my screen as I'm on kind of like a public space. Doug, unfortunately, I don't have that much any experience in Uzbekistan, other than the fact that I just have general interest in different countries across the globe. But our firm also has some exposure, but I'm not too sure exactly what I can share right now. Apologize for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sasaki-san, it works for Itochu, which is the largest firm of its kind and right in the middle of all sorts of transactions around the world and does investing in a variety of different businesses. And definitely, probably, Daniel, understanding what Itochu's presence is in that region would be interesting. It's fascinating to me that the Koreans would be there. It's still kind of blowing my mind. I'd really like to understand that more. Thank you for sharing all of that. And thank you, Sasaki-san. Sorry to surprise you.
Can I just add, Doug? Thank you. Sasaki-san, we went to the same grad school. You just went a little bit after me. In fact, you started the year I graduated. So I just saw your LinkedIn. Yeah. So
well, we know what's going on with SIPA these days.
Yeah. I actually was a dual degree. I did SIPA in the business school.
Oh, okay.
But SIPA was my favorite part of it. So, but yeah, we know today it's a different story. Doug, you know what? If nobody else has a question, maybe I'll just give you the quickest thing. So basically, I'm not an expert, but as I understood it, Koreans were working in the Russian Far East during Stalin's time, okay? Because, it borders the Russian Far East. And Stalin, as you know, sent a lot of quote unquote nationalities in exile. So the Chechens, the Kalmyks, which are Mongolian Buddhists in the Caucasus region, the Tatars, the Crimean Tatars, Crimeans in the news, lots of different, exiled them to Central Asia. And I think he thought that because the Koreans were Asian, they would be pro-Japan in the World War II. Anyway, so they were sent here. So there's still 200,000 here. There's Korean restaurants left and right. There's branches of Korean universities. There's lots of that. And I'll be frank, I never cared for Korean food in the US. But when I worked in Tajikistan, it was my favorite restaurant. I used to go there for lunch almost every day to the Korean restaurant, and I really started to like it. So that's a very close relationship. Just another thing, Turkey is a quite close relationship because Turkic people, the religion is the same, and so on. So of course that wasn't in existence during the Soviet period, but post-Soviet period, that's quite active. So Turkey is also another thing. And one more thing I might just mention, in terms of, I mentioned a lot of different nationalities and regions. Sunni Islam is the main religion, but of course there are lots of other religions, and historically there are. Before Islam, if you go here in the south, okay, you will see Buddhist stupas, Hindu influence, Manichaean Nestorian Christianity, and the Jews have been here for thousands of years also. The oldest is the Bukharan Jews, and so on. So there's lots of religious diversity as well, you can find here as well. And, that's another thing. Our friend Dubra was mentioning tourism, hospitality. So I forgot to mention that. Huge here, huge. And they're looking to increase it. They told me from the tourism ministry, only 15,000 tourists from the US every year. That's sick.
Wow.
That's sick. It's absolutely sick. I know it's thousands of miles away, but the US is the biggest probably market bringing tourists in, and you only get 15,000 a year, and you've got all these great Silk Road cities, and you know all kinds of things you can see here. So the tourism sector and the hospitality sector needs a lot of development here in a lot of areas. There are millions of tourists come a year from, but may say from Russia or somewhere and other places. And I would just say, if you want to talk about the quick growth here, as I mentioned, 5, 6 years ago, there were very few chain hotels. They're all over the place now. They're opening them up constantly, left, right, even in the regions. You're opening up, including in the regions in Kazakhstan and the regions here. So that's a whole thing that, you lost out a bit if you waited on that. You didn't completely lose out, but if you wait on some other industries in 5 or 10 years, you'll be kicking yourself. I could have gotten in first or second mover, and now it's just like every other country. It's saturated with everything. So Doug, shut me up because I'm going to keep going and keep going.
Well, we do need to close, and I'll ask you for a 1 minute kind of conclusion of summary. But I do want to mention that kind of in this series where we're going around the world with Global Chamber, tomorrow's conversation is about Turkey. And earlier today, some of you were already part of our partner there, Rashid's turnkey organization. So we've already had a little bit of a preamble, but with Global Chamber, we try to do more of this kind of conversation where it's what are some of the opportunities, making some of the connections, and drive a lot of the activity between business leaders to each other, and then ultimately connect leaders to the opportunities directly. And so, Daniel, you're amazing. You really are. Not just your knowledge, but your passion. And having now known you for a number of years and seen how you've evolved and now gotten even deeper embedded, there's all sorts of opportunities that you're going to be successful in. And we're just very happy that you're a global advisor with Global Chamber. What final conclusions would you like to share?
Well, Doug, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. And yes, Turkey, of course, is high on the list here, and Turkish and Uzbek is my next, hopefully, language to learn well. And I can't make it tomorrow, but I'll see the video. So I mean, look, yes, it's far. It's far from a lot of areas. Although I'd say it's about a 5-hour flight from Istanbul. It's about a 3-hour flight from Dubai. It's a 3-hour flight from New Delhi. But if you're looking for a region, again, it's not easy here, but if there weren't problems and it was easy, then there's no opportunities. So if you're looking for a region of the world and a country and a region which is still not saturated, which is, in its first levels of opening up to the world, and you want to be first, second movers in different areas, this could be the possibility for you to look at. And, we're here on the ground. I'm on LinkedIn. I shared myself. You can connect with me. Thank you to Global Chamber. Thank you to Turnkey earlier in the day. Thank you to all of you who showed up here. I look forward to being in touch. A lot of the Global Chamber events are in the evening Tashkent time, which is not convenient for me because I have my workouts and my yoga at that time a lot of the time. But I try to join when I can, and I'll be joining here and there, and I'm sure we'll be having future events and things where we can be in touch and meet as well. So, Doug, if you come to Istanbul, we may force you to take a side trip to Uzbekistan. We don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think with Russia, we already committed the Global Chamber will
Right.
have one of our
Good.
global meetings in Istanbul. So I look forward to
Great.
doing that. And then Uzbekistan definitely now is on my bucket list. In terms of some of the things that are coming up in the next 24 and 48 hours, tomorrow morning, your time, probably a little early, is our Young Global Leader Initiative. We do a monthly program for young leaders to become more globally minded and successful globally. So that's a monthly program at Global Chamber. The Turkey program is tomorrow. We also tomorrow have, I think, several other things, including I'm speaking with Eddie Geisel, who is a mining expert, but he's talking about sales, and his expertise is around selling. And so that's tomorrow. And I think it's Friday. We have three experts talking about global marketing and how to market. We did actually another event earlier today about marketing and business success, and that was fascinating. If you didn't sign up for it, Dr. Baker, watch the recording because he is so good at clarifying what you need to do for your business. It's just really outstanding. If you sign up, you'll get the recording, and it's well worth the time. That was the meeting that Rashid pulled me out of, and I missed most of it, but what I saw was priceless. And so definitely check that out. Most of our meetings are free, even for non-members. So feel free to jump in. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you all for participating. Have a great rest of your day, and maybe see you in the next couple days in one of these other events. Take care.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks for the happy birthday as well. It's time for my birthday breakfast. Take care.
Bye-bye.